Hello, everybody. Welcome to an impromptu episode of the Potatocast. I think we're going to label it as 14.1. We just recently released our official WandaVision episode where we talked about episodes 1 through 8. And now we are back to talk about episode 9, which just dropped this morning / last night. I'm, of course, Jason Ellis. I'm my co-host,
Joaquin Matthews.
And so it's a bit of an impromptu episode. Joaquin has not gone to sleep since it came out. The episode came out at 3 a.m. Eastern time. I went to sleep like an hour ago, and I had an alarm, and I just woke back up so we could talk about it, because we planned to talk about it early in the morning so we can have this up the day that it came out. And so this will not be the most professional episode per se.
No,
things will be a little bit all over the place probably, and also it's not the same format as when we talked about episodes 1 through 8. We're not going to do like a long drawn out summary of the episode and then give our thoughts. We're just going to kind of give our thoughts on the episode. If spoilers, if you should have seen episode 9.
Yeah, of course.
So
you should have seen the whole show, So
right, yeah. Hopefully, you actually saw the whole show, not just episode 9. But
right,
but yeah. So I guess I'll kick it over to you, Joaquin. First, I guess you said in the last episode that you thought episode 6, I believe it was the last good episode of the show. Do you still believe that now?
No, because I think this is a really good episode. Well, okay, I don't think it's per se a really good episode because I have some problems with it, but I think it's good. I think it's good. What about you? What about you? Because you said episode 8 was like in running for your favorite. I'm assuming because of one of the scenes in this one could also be in your running for the favorite.
I'm glad that you kind of bring stuff like that up. I don't think this is my favorite episode, but I really love this episode. Like, I think it's really good. I think it was a really strong ending. I think they saw the destination and they finished strong. But yeah, I guess we can get into the little, details about the episode now. I really liked, the first thing that kind of popped in my head while watching the episode was, last episode you said, I don't know how they're going to be able to fit a fight scene into one epised.
Right.
How do they do it? You start off with the fight scenes. You get right into it.
Pretty much, yeah. It carries out like through the entire episode. Little breaks here and there, but
it basically starts right away from where episode 8 left off.
Right. Obviously, like the most action-packed episode we've had. Yeah, a lot of interesting things happen. This is your last warning for spoilers because we're just gonna hop into like this big thing. I want to start off with the double vision fight because Paul Bettany, of course, if you watched episode 14, you'd know that we talked about how he was like, oh, well, I haven't worked with this actor before.
Yeah, there's a really big cameo coming up. We have, sparks fly when we're on screen together.
And you know what? I think that's probably like one of my favorite parts of the episode is when he was just interacting with himself. Because there was no like big cameo. There was no Doctor Strange. No like Fantastic Four coming out now. But like I just really liked the two visions interacting with each other. Especially the part where the white vision, the new vision is like, I'm intrigued, let me know more. One thing I wrote down here, I said I was right. I was kind of right that we'd get a vision out of this and he'd get like his memories. I was kind of right in that aspect. I just wasn't right in the way they would go about it. I said that this vision would transplant his memories into the new vision and kind of like control that body. Right. That's not what ended up happening. It turns out that Hayward, or just Sword in general, kind of locked down the original Vision's memories in this new body. So WandaVision kind of just unlocks those memories for him, so he becomes the Vision we from, pre Endgame.
Right, yeah, he gets all his memories back, and the last thing that we see of him is him say, I am the Vision.
And then he flies off, which I really wanted something a little more, just like a teaser for where he could be, because assuming he still likes Wanda, they spent all that time in what country was it in Infinity War? They were like,
was it Germany or something?
Was it Germany?
It was some kind of European country, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
No, I had a similar thought with that. I was expecting, once he flew off, him to show up again at the end to kind of save the day, or maybe at the very end, Vision, like the WandaVision would tell Wanda about how this Vision's back or whatever. But there's no mention of it. But I'm okay with that, because in my head, I can see I don't know. I don't know if this is right, but in my head, I can see the future of where this heads, because again, still kind of jumping around. We'll talk about this a bit more, but
yeah.
I still think that Wanda in Doctor Strange is gonna be like a quote unquote like villainous force / problem in Doctor Strange, and I think that Vision is going to be the one that is her come to Jesus moment, and that brings her to the light side again. He'll be the one to sort of give Wanda her humanity back when they finally meet back up with each other.
I don't know about that, because I think this episode kind of implanted that Wanda is not a villain, in this kind of her redemption arc from capturing all the town citizens. So I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, I thought that until the end credit scene.
Even the end credit scene is just her.
We'll touch on it more when we get to it.
Yeah. Okay. One thing. If we're kind of going in order of the episode, I just really don't like Agnes. I realized this when I was watching this episode. I don't like Agnes. I don't like Agatha. I don't know if it's the actor or just it's just it was kind of even painful to even watch her lose, because I just did not want to see this character anymore. I know you probably have a very different opinion on that. It's probably a hot take.
Yeah, but... no, I would say I don't necessarily completely agree. Like I said last episode, when she kind of first revealed herself to be Agatha, I was like, it didn't really work for me. But then, I thought in episode 8 she was kind of redeemed as a character, and I still think that in this episode, I don't know, she never was my favorite part of the episode. I actually think that she works much better as Agnes the neighbor than Agatha. But,
yeah, I do too.
But I still think that at least I personally think that she worked still as Agatha in this episode. One big thing that we got revealed to us finally was the identity of Evan Peters' Quicksilver. It was revealed to us that it was all a ruse, it was all a bait, and that he, as far as we know, still there's no connection to the X-Men Quicksilver, and that it sort of answers two questions: one, who is Evan Peters, and also sort of who is Ralph, who's mentioned as Agnes's husband a bunch of times.
You actually got his first name. I just wrote down Boner.
Right. So yeah, it's revealed that he's actually Ralph Boner, who is the owner of the house that's next to Wanda's house. And I take it he's an actor because he had headshots, and he has headshots and stuff in his attic. But right. And yeah, so then that Agatha took control over and just used for her own gain or whatever. And when she kind of explained in episode 8 that she was able to convince that it was Quicksilver to Wanda just because she was so hysterical, that she literally, that's what she did, was she just took a random person and called him Quicksilver, and because Wanda was questioning things, she was just okay with it.
Yeah.
We also, in my eyes, I thought we got a confirmation for Fijo Magic. I think
For
for
what?
the Fijo Magic commercial. I think when we brought it up, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Agnes feeding off of the other, which is magic. And she pretty much confirms that in this episode, where she confirms to Wanda that that's kind of her thing, is she takes the magic from, she says, from those that are undeserving.
Yeah.
So that kind of confirmed that theory. Something I thought was interesting in this episode is, for the whole series, I never thought that Hayward was going to be a villain. I thought that he was simply a dick director who was just a foil for the people on the outside, but never like a true villain.
Right.
I can say in this episode, he's a true villain. He tried to shoot and run over kids. I don't think he can come back from that.
No, I guess the kids weren't real. Is what his thought process was. But can we talk about that for a second? Because this episode actually makes me hate episode 8 a little more. Because Darcy doesn't say a single line in this episode. Her entire role is to just crash into Hayward's truck. That's her entire role this episode. And then we don't see her in either post-credit scenes or that the end of the show for that matter.
Right.
We just know that she's somewhere.
Mm-hmm. She is supposedly working on future Marvel projects too.
Yeah, it's super disappointing to me that's the end. Episode 8 was kind of like the end you gave to Darcy, which was just explaining to Vision what he was, which makes me hate episode 8 just that much more.
Well, you mean that? I think that was 7.
Was it 7?
Yeah, that was the office style one.
Oh yeah, you're right. Episode 8. Yeah, okay. Episode 8's good. Episode 7 I hate.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah. That's okay.
While that's going on, Wanda and Agatha are doing their big fight scene.
Yeah, and it's here where we sort of get Agatha called Wanda in the last episode the Scarlet Witch.
Right.
And we saw in the High Age of flashback the premonition of the Scarlet Witch and stuff, so which kind of proved to the audience kind of what Agnes was talking about. At the same time, that was still just a theory that Agnes had. But in this episode, we finally got that sort of, I guess, awakening of the Scarlet Witch in Wanda, which came out in the final Agnes fight. And yeah, so while Agnes was trying to siphon off Wanda's magic, she finally thinks she accomplishes it, and then it's revealed that Wanda created runes on the hex that she learned from Agnes when Agnes captured Wanda in her basement and had runes. And I should have seen this coming. Because I literally watched a review of episode 8 being like, oh, there's runes that make somebody not be able to use magic, and there's going to be a battle between two people with magic. I wonder how this is going to come into play in the future. And I should have known, but I just forgot about it. And when it popped up, I was genuinely surprised. I was like, oh,
okay,
she did it. Right. She did the twist.
Yeah, she did the twist, but the way they did the twist is kind of confusing because it's not explained if Wanda was just pretending to get her magic siphoned off her, or if by putting the runes up it kind of reversed all of Agatha's magic. That's the confusing part to me, because Wanda was clearly was aging up from getting her magic siphoned off of her. Yeah. So I don't know if she was, maybe she was just pretending she was just a big dick, but
I don't think it was necessarily she was pretending, because we see it kind of come back to her. And I also don't think that she was purposely getting drained of all of it per se. I think that she was just, while creating the runes while also fighting Agatha, yeah, she had to make it seem like she wasn't creating runes, because if it was obvious what she was doing, then she would have been stopped by Agatha. So she had to make it seem like she was just missing shots, and in which case, when she would hit Agatha, that would siphon off her magic, and she got to the point where she was, pretty much mostly drained. But that was also when the runes were finished. and at that point, Agatha's sort of siphoning off magic power was disabled. Granted, she can still fly for some reason, so she can still kind of do that. Again, that's like a little nitpick thing. To me, it didn't really like ruin the episode or anything, but I did kind of notice that when I was like, oh well, she's not able to use her magic, but she's able to use this one piece of magic where she can fly still.
Is this the first time Wanda's like ever flown in any MCU like thing?
I want to say
aside from like the kitchen scene where she was just levitating, this is like just straight up flying she was doing.
Right. I want to say there's been brief stints of it, like where like perhaps she flew up from like one thing to like another platform. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we've ever seen her like fly around like we have seen her in this specific episode.
Yeah, that's something I kind of noticed.
What'd you think of the classic costume? I mean, it's not classic, but it's much more inspired than any other costume she's had based on the classic comic book costume.
Yeah. I think it's nice. I like the leather.
I think it looks good too.
It doesn't really like shout out to me. It's there. It's not too intrusive. It's kind of a muted red because I can't imagine like her wearing like this bright red costume, especially in like because a lot of Marvel movies end up being like dull in their color palette. Yeah,
I was also a bit concerned when like you see the silhouette of it at first because it looks like it's like a flowing dress almost, and I was like, oh no! But then once like the lights kind of came on and you could see it fully, I was like, oh wait, that actually does look kind of good. I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's okay. To jump back to something though, Jimmy Woo just kind of gets captured, presumably on purpose. We don't see him getting captured, but he's like at like the new sword base outside the hex, and he just kind of like he gives up to grab a phone behind him and was like, I'm gonna tell everything and everybody what you did. Then Hayward's like, yeah, I believe that. Get this guy out of here. Mm-hmm. That was just kind of there.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I really liked the interaction. I mean, more Jimmy Woo, the better in my eyes.
Yeah, obviously, Jimmy Woo is still a great character, but that just...
I didn't think it didn't work, though, because Jimmy Woo, I don't know. We didn't see how it played out, but in my mind, he probably was just trying to sneak on the base or something, and then he got captured. I don't necessarily think he had the idea of, I'm going to get captured and then steal a phone while I get captured, because I don't think he would know that a phone would be there on the table.
Right, right. Yeah, that's kind of like one of the most disappointing aspects to me, though. Is like this episode had ample opportunity to like close character threads, but it just doesn't really take that opportunity. I think we could. A 10th episode is still possible. I
don't know.
It's possible. It's possible. I'm doubting it too, but I kind of hope a little bit of me is hoping that there is, just to close some more character threads, because it doesn't feel complete to me, and that could just be because.
In what aspect? Like which characters don't you think?
Okay, Darcy
had a good end.
Darcy from before.
Well, she was just a supplementary character for the most part, and she is still. She confirmed that she's showing up in other stuff. This wasn't necessarily Darcy's story to tell.
No, I know, but like if you have them there, I'd like to have like some sort of like show some sort of progression, because this doesn't really do that. Jimmy Woo's still gonna be Jimmy Woo, and he's. You probably couldn't have him if you didn't have him in WandaVision. Nothing realistically would have changed.
If they just had a random FBI director, I agree. I agree with that, but I think it was just a little bit of fan service. They have an FBI agent in their catalog of characters they already introduced. Why not bring him in?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I just kind of wanted more. I feel like especially with an episodic format like this, you can really take like moments to flesh out these characters. It kind of left me hanging,
Okay, so that's fair. Well, see, when you were talking about, there's a scene in this episode that could put this up with my favorite. I imagine that you're thinking of when they go back to the house afterwards.
Yeah.
So the battle ends. She beats Agatha. She turns Agatha back to Agnes, and that's kind of her prison, is playing the role of Agnes in the town. Like Wanda uses like her chaos magic to kind of recreate her into Agnes. And so then her and Vision, they go back to the house as she is, kind of forced to get rid of the hex, because we learned that she can't have both. She can't have her family and put down the hex. She has to do one or the other, either keep her family and keep this town imprisoned, or do the right thing and say goodbye to her family.
Right.
So her and Vision, after the fight, they go back with the kids to the house, and what I really loved was when she officially turns into the Scarlet Witch. She has that transformation. She's kind of like more kind of ethereal and like almost godlike when she's like talking down to Agnes and stuff. And like they easily could have made her, after the transform, she's this, omnipotent, all-powerful kind of new magic being. But what they do instead is, after she beats Agnes, we go right back to her being Wanda, the Wanda that we've known this whole episode.
That I like. I really like.
And they go back to the house, and I think these scenes are some of the most powerful scenes in the show. When they have to say goodbye to the kids.
Probably the whole MCU.
Yeah, honestly. So, they tuck the kids in. The kids don't really know what's coming, but both Wanda and Vision know that this is coming. The charade's coming to an end. And they tuck the kids in and they say goodbye. And I honestly, as much as I love Wanda's performance in this, I think I might like Vision's performance even more. Like when he has to like just say goodnight to the boys really quick and just kind of rush out of the room because he can't handle the emotion of it. Like he can't handle the sadness of it. I was like, oh my God. And then also Wanda also, does a phenomenal job. Elizabeth Olsen is so good in this. But I think that the much more powerful scene is once they go downstairs and Wanda and Vision say goodbye to each other, and she finally explains to Vision what he is. And she says that he's the piece of the Mind Stone that lives in her. He's her sadness, her hope, but most of all, he's her love. And they say goodbye as the hex is drawing closer and closer, closing and closing. And Vision says, we've said goodbye before, which means it's only right to think that we'll say hello again. And, the hex comes, it closes on them, and Vision says goodbye as he's basically disintegrated and taken away with the hex. And I tweeted this because I watched it twice, the episode.
Yep.
And when I watched the episode, back the second time, when they say that line of, I literally just said it.
You literally just, I thought you quoted it perfectly. I thought you wrote it down somewhere.
Yeah, no, Vision
We've said goodbye before.
And then Wanda finishes it saying, we'll say hello again.
Right.
It was that moment where I didn't cry. A tear did not roll down my face, but my eyes, they were swelling. They were tearing up. I was like, oh no, oh my God. And we sort of end the episode with Wanda saying goodbye to Monica, kind of apologizing. And she's like, I'm going to learn about, this new power that I have. Oh, also, I should probably mention that we do get sort of a name drop of Doctor Strange in this, because Agatha mentions how, the Scarlet Witch is even stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
And we also get the confirmation that book that was in Agatha's basement is the Darkhold, which is basically, she calls it the Book of the Damned. In Marvel Comics, it's also called the Book of Sins. It's filled with a bunch of dark magic spells and stuff like that. I imagine this is what Agnes had back when she was on that witch trial for, practicing dark spells and stuff. But that has all the information on the Scarlet Witch. So, okay. So there's 2 end credit scenes. One of them I really didn't care much about, but the other one I really cared a lot about.
Wait, it could go either way for you.
The one I didn't really care about was the first one.
Okay.
Where Monica, she gets called into the movie theater where, agent or, operative or whatever is like, people are waiting for you on the inside. And she goes inside the movie theater, and the person reveals himself to be a Skrull. And they're like, yeah, they want to see you, you know, up where? Or no, up there. And Monica's like, up where? And they point up to like space or whatever. And I take it that's probably going to be a story point leading into Captain Marvel 2. Which, you know, I could take it or leave it. It wasn't the most compelling thing to me. You know, I knew Monica was going to be in Captain Marvel 2. Probably knew Skrulls were going to be in Captain Marvel 2. Didn't really reveal a whole lot.
Right.
What were you thinking of, you know, about this end credit scene?
All right, so they were walking into the movie theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say that Monica got a bit of a dumpy.
Sure, you can say that.
That's pretty much all I was. No, I'm kidding. No, I thought it was interesting because, you know, that the last we've seen of Skrulls was from Far From Home, so it's nice to get an update. It's nice to get an update on them. I'm sure, like, Nick Fury is probably doing something up there in his vacation space.
Yeah, at first I thought we were gonna get Nick Fury or somebody like that in the movie theater.
Might be too expensive.
You're right. Yeah, to get Samuel L. Jackson for a TV appearance? No way.
Yeah, what, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might.
I saw a lot of people theorize that he might have shown up in the 2000s era sitcom, and it would be for a commercial for Capital One, like credit card. But obviously it didn't happen. And then we get the last, so the whole season didn't really have many end credit scenes. Then like episode, I think it was 7 on, it was either 6 or 7 on, there was a mid-credit scene. This is the first, you know, post-credit scene. So I was like, I don't know if they're going to have it, but I stayed and waited for it, and I'm happy I did.
I skipped through the credits because I was like, I might fall asleep soon. So
Right. We get to the end credit scene, and we pan in on, like, the wilderness. There's mountains and stuff, and there's a little tiny cabin at the base of the mountain, and we see that Wanda's there, and, you know, it goes in, she's making tea or something, and it strolls past her, though, into the back room of this cabin, and you see Wanda in her Scarlet Witch outfit with the Darkhold book, you know, levitating and just, like, flipping through the pages, reading, and, presumably learning. And when this episode initially ended, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe Wanda, when she says that she's going to go and learn, she's going to go and try to find Doctor Strange, and that's going to be sort of the tie-in to Doctor Strange 2.
Right.
But now that I see that she's going through the Darkhold, I think that it is still setting her up to be a villainous character, because the Darkhold is full of dark magic and spells. And could that be the end of it? Yeah, that could be what Marvel does. They could just say that's what the Darkhold is it's full of, you know, dark spells and incantations. But if we go on and go deeper, you know, this is why I kind of want to touch on this last. Granted, it also kind of came last in the show. But if we want to go deeper into Marvel Comics, yes?
You're not going to talk about the biggest thing?
Oh, the kids, like, yelling out to her and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The kids are also yelling out to her and stuff. Well, I'll touch on that.
That's
I think her just, you know, learning about the book and, like, almost like astral projecting herself making tea is way more important than just the kids yelling out.
What do you mean? That means the kids still exist.
Yeah. I think, again, it's important, but
not as
anyways,
important.
Anyways,
not as important as her reading a book.
It is. I don't think it's as important as her reading.
Oh,
a
yeah,
book.
nuts.
Because
yeah,
okay, so
nuts.
the Darkhold. If we're going into Marvel Comics lore, I'm gonna give you the simple and easy explanation of the Darkhold. Okay, so before any other, like, intelligent life was on Earth, there were these things called the Elder Gods, and one of them, his name was Chthon, who was evil. And basically, long story short, he got like locked away by, I forget if it was humans or Eternals or something like that. Some kind of, the next kind of form of being just locked him away because he was evil and wanted to take over the world and stuff.
Right.
And so, fast forward a bit, the Darkhold is created, which contains the darkest, like, spells and incantations of Chthon. And, you know, his whole goal is to, you know, come back. Typically, it's through, like, a vessel to, you know, take over the world again. Now, Just saying that, I'm like, they'll probably just say it's like an evil book. I don't think they're gonna do any Chthon stuff. That's like a little bit too out there for them. But you also have to take into consideration in the Marvel Comics, the person who is the perfect vessel for him to come back is the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff. And there's even more connection between the two of them, because where he's cast away at, and like where he's like held captive, is under this mountain called Mount Wundagore, which in the comics is also where Wanda is born. And like I think in the comics, like a piece of him is like attached to Wanda or something like that. So they're kind of linked. Now, it could just be a random mountain that she's underneath. It very well could be, or that could be that very mountain, Mount Wundagore. You know, they've done weird stuff with like Dormammu. If you told me Dormammu was gonna show up in a Marvel movie, I'd be like, who are you talking about? And they're also, you know, it's Multiverse of Madness, so we know that Doctor Strange can get into weird stuff. They're also making an Eternals movie, and the Eternals were like the next like form of beings on Earth after these Elder Gods in the comics. I'm not saying that Chthon is gonna turn up and try to take over Wanda and take over the world and stuff like that. But I'm just saying that there's a possibility. Little things kind of add up, and there's a possibility that could happen. Again, I think it's probably more likely that the Darkhold is simply it's just a dark book of spells that might corrupt Wanda a little bit, and then that will lead into Doctor Strange, where I think she's going to be like a more bad guy, villainous problem, and then eventually she'll be, you know, redeemed or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Al Capone's gonna be in the Marvel movies. Whatever.
Capone.
Whatever. Can we please, the kids screaming?
Yes. Okay. So while she's reading the book, while she's studying, we hear, you know, I think it was Tommy or whatever, kind of scream out to her saying, you know, "Mom, help, please." So yes.
Do you know I
think what they did that for was to set up so that way, you know, if they ever want to do a Young Avengers or something, they can kind of say that they can bring the kids back eventually, and, you know, they'll be permanent fixtures of the Marvel Universe. And I do think they probably will eventually do that at some point.
Here's the thing to me. If we know that Vision was created in the Hex by Wanda, we also know that in this episode the same thing happened with the kids. The kids were not belonging to anybody else.
Yes, they were also creations of Wanda.
They were created by Wanda herself. Vision has a Mind Stone in his head. Assuming that Vision is also in the same place that the kids are in right now, Wanda has the power to just create Infinity Stones. That, I think, is a super interesting concept. I don't know if they'll ever do anything with that, but I think that's far more interesting than her reading a book. No offense. I think it'd be super cool to see that fleshed out a little bit more.
See, I don't know if they'll ever do that.
Do you think it's a possibility that we'll get this, like, WandaVision's vision possibly at some point? Because of the kids, if the kids exist,
I could see it maybe like popping up briefly in something, but I don't think he'll ever fully come back, because I think it would just make things way too complicated with, you know, the fact that there is regular Vision that Wanda was in love with is back too. I just think it would complicate and muddy things too much, and I don't know if necessarily that there's like an alternate dimension that Wanda made that where the kids are located and stuff. You know, I don't know exactly where they're calling out from.
I think it's gonna be a pretty like big plot. It's gonna be pretty plot relevant to the new Doctor Strange movie. I think that she's gonna get her kids there. That's what I think.
I think that's a good shout. I'm not exactly sure when she'll get her kids back, but I wouldn't be surprised if she gets it back in Doctor Strange. I also, again, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, to get her kids back, she does some like dark magic stuff, and that is sort of like a catalyst in Doctor Strange or something like that.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, kind of related to like Infinity Stones, is we saw like when the two Visions were like communicating with each other, we saw the WandaVision vision use the Mind Stone to unlock White Vision's locked down memories, which to me just shows that yes, that is an Infinity Stone, and yes, it works. That's kind of that I thought was super interesting because we saw like White Vision get like enveloped by this like yellow hue.
Right. I don't know if it means that like he has a literal physical Infinity Stone in his face. Like I think what it could be. I mean, it could be that. I don't know, but I think what it probably is because he's like made of the remnants of the Mind Stone that was in Wanda. So it could just be the fact that like his whole kind of body is made of, residual pieces of the Mind Stone.
That's kind of what I was thinking, like, could be possible too, but the fact that the kids still exist in some form makes me think that Vision still exists in some form too, alongside the kids. And bringing back that Vision, you would have the Mind Stone in his head. Which, that, you know what, that could just be a huge stretch. But
right. I mean, no, you could be you could be right.
It's interesting to me to just ponder about it. I guess with all that out of the way, real quick, because no offense, but I don't think Falcon and the Winter Soldier's getting up to these heights.
Yeah, I was gonna say
do you think that too?
I think it will be good. But I feel really, okay. But I feel really bad for them for having to follow this.
Right. That's the thing. That's the thing. I don't think we're gonna. You know what? Though I was pleasantly surprised with this show. So maybe, it'll be the same deal with Falcon and Winter Soldier. But I don't think so. I just don't think those characters have as much like interest like in general compared to Wanda and Vision.
I don't know. I think that there's opportunity for them to really flesh out those characters because, Captain America is one of the most probably beloved characters in the MCU. And this, while he isn't in the show, it's still kind of somewhat a continuation of his story. And I think they can do some really interesting stuff with, sort of, I know he gave the shield to Sam to use, but right. I think there will be a bit of like a dispute between him and Bucky on who should be holding the shield. Honestly, I think there's a chance at the end of this, neither of them hold the shield. I think there's a chance at the end of it, neither of them become Captain America, and they decide, we're not, we don't have a right to kind of pick up that mantle, and they'll just kind of do their own thing again. Although I could be wrong also, that they could have either Bucky be Cap or Sam be Cap, because they've both been Cap in the comic books before. But I think there's interesting stuff they could do. Obviously, we haven't seen a single episode yet, but I do think it will be a lot more paint by number sort of Marvel, content compared to this. Right,
I think so too. And you mentioned like Captain America being like one of the most like beloved characters. Even then, Captain America doesn't like have this super fleshed out backstory. At least to me, it's just he was frozen in ice, and they kind of like created things along the way to try to make him a more fleshed out character.
I think you should rewatch Captain America: The First Avenger. I think his character is very fleshed out.
I watched it not too long ago. It's maybe I'll get another rewatch, but I'd rather watch Winter Soldier. I'll say it. I'll say it.
I agree. No, I like Winter Soldier better than Captain America 1. But in conclusion, I just want to applaud Marvel on what they did with this show, because they took Elizabeth Olsen and they played to her strengths as an actress rather than giving us the typical Marvel action-packed thriller. They took a chance with this show. And if you don't think they took a chance, I would say you could sort of think about it a little bit more, because everything that Marvel has produced before this has always just been it's been an action movie. It's had the big action, the explosions or whatever. I'm not saying that they can't tell compelling stories or intricate stories. They were able to weave 25 movies together almost seamlessly. Of course they can tell intricate and compelling stories. But rather than to make their typical action-packed thriller, they decided to make a show that was essentially a character study on a broken woman dealing with her grief and trying to heal and dealing with the repercussions of that.
Right.
And I think that they knocked it out of the park. And what I think the show did especially for me, that I'm thankful for, is it reignited my excitement for the future of the MCU. Because at the end of Endgame, I wasn't too excited about the future of the MCU. I knew everything they were going to make was going to be good, because they haven't really ever made anything that's really bad. But, when Endgame ended, I said, hey, I know there's new movies coming out, but if they came out tomorrow and said this was the last movie we're making, I'd be okay with it. I was content. I thought that they told the story they needed to tell. They kind of completed what they were doing. And even, after Spider-Man, sure, it was a great movie, and they set up for future Spider-Man movies, but future of the MCU in general, I wasn't really too excited for it or anything.
I agree with that.
But after this show, I can officially say that I need to see how this story plays out. I'm excited to see what transpires, especially with Wanda might be, in my top 5 favorite MCU characters now. Like above her, I can only think of like the Guardians, perhaps. And after it's all played out, they may not be above her anymore. And like I don't know, maybe Spider-Man, maybe I don't. But Wanda, they really fleshed her out. I love her as a character, and I'm just excited to see this story unfold and for the future of the MCU. And even though it's been announced that the 3 movies that connect are Wanda, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange. But I don't know if the story of Wanda will be over at that point. I think there's still a chance that there's legs on this. I think there's a chance that it could go beyond that. Will it? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe at the end of Doctor Strange, she'll, be, if she does turn evil, she'll come back to the good side, or she'll stay on the good side, and then at the end of it, she'll settle down with the new Vision, and that will be the end of her story. I don't know. But I think there's legs on it, and I'm really excited.
I'm excited too. I pretty much share all the same thoughts as you. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to this extra part. If you stuck around this far, and Jason, where can people find you?
You can find me in bed after this. I will be going to sleep.
Me
so
too.
Much that but
me
you can also
too.
find me on Twitter at CapPoop66, on Instagram at CapPoop66. Pretty much everywhere there.
All right, 12-star. You'll find me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and let's hope for a good future for the MCU.
Yes.
Later.